Next on the chopping block of manifestos released, I know the Conservatives was over the weekend, we'll address it tomorrow, was the Brexit parties. They got quite a lot of attention. Many people, many news outlets live streamed it. I'm not playing any of it because I know what will happen next. Strike, strike, strike. Fair use means nothing to these people after all. And I thought we'd go through some of the policies they have put on their manifesto, because while many can argue they are a one-dimensional party, they have domestic policies we should address. The first, let's go with Brexit, shall we, is the transition period. They will not extend it. To an extent, it can be argued that the Brexit party has changed its position on this slightly, because Nigel Farage for the longest time said a no-deal Brexit was the only acceptable deal. This policy shifts things. It's like a moving of the goalposts. He is no longer, Nigel Farage that is, taking shots at Boris Johnson, instead favouring that there will be no extension beyond the transition period. This transition period finishes at the end of 2020. Because of the Brexit Party's position, there would be no wiggle room if they were elected into office. Of course, they're not going to win that many seats. They'll win some seats, though, I think. But there will be no wiggle room to extend the transition period to iron out everything else. The second policy of interest, no privatisation of the NHS. The fact that many parties now have to outright say this is a damning statement of how well Jeremy Corbyn has managed to spin this to make it look like everyone else is going to try to. But of course, by outright saying they will not privatise the NHS, they, like every other party that has said that, gets ahead of Corbyn's fearmongery. The third, and this is the obvious one, to reduce annual immigration. Much like the Conservatives, the Brexit Party wants a fair point system, similar to that of Australia, and to crack down on illegal immigration. Now, Nigel Farage wants to cut the number down to 50,000 a year, but the policy is not explicitly outlined in the Brexit Party manifesto. Next policy will be cut VAT on domestic fuel. This is a part of a reduction in many taxes, which would include corporation tax. However, much like every other detail on taxes and reducing taxes, not many of the pledges have been costed, so we can't be sure just yet how much things are going to cost. It should be pointed out, numbers used by the Brexit Party include $200 billion being raised over a 5-year parliamentary period to include the lifetime cost of high-speed rail and tax cuts for small business, corporation tax, and creating a £10,000 tax-free allowance. There's more to that, but unfortunately most of the details are vague. 5. Ban the UK exporting its waste. We should be responsible for recycling and dealing with our own stuff, so outsourcing it seems silly. Do you remember those charity events we have on TV where all the waste ends up in, like, India somewhere, and kids are rummaging through it for scraps to sell? Yeah, how about that? International law prohibits industrialized nations from exporting waste that is unfit to be processed, so we should be responsible for that. Banning exports totally would force the British waste industry to build new treatment plants with repercussions for local authorities and householders too. I call it consequences. The next policy would be free broadband in deprived regions. Now, this policy is to catch up with Labour, who obviously want to create a nationalised internet or broadband service by buying back, air quotes around, buying back BT, even though it's not back. Yes. Next, scrap the TV licence fees, something I 100% support because the TV licence is a load of rubbish and the BBC is an antiquated institute that produces period dramas rehashed over and over again and then rehashed even more because diversity, yo, with a sprinkle of Dr. Crap and EastEnders. Next, abolish the inheritance tax, something I actually also kind of agree with, because why on earth should someone be punished for receiving a gift from their ancestor or a friend? It makes little sense to me. I know the Conservatives have raised the bar a bit, but quite frankly I think it's unfair to punish those who are given something freely. Next, they want to scrap high-speed rail. Now, I don't agree with this, but cost isn't really something I'm too familiar with when it comes to running the service. The Brexit Party, like the Green Party, believe it would raise up to $200 billion over 5 years so that they can invest that elsewhere. I tend to think high speed's really handy. It turns my 6-hour journey to Norwich down to 4. It would be shorter, but there's no high-speed link from Stratford to Norwich yet. Number 10, something that might get the students on side. He wants to abolish the interest on student loans, which I also tend to agree with, but then also, since the name is student loan, I kind of understand why the interest exists. 11, change planning to help house building. Now, many parties over the years have failed to meet house building targets, and the problem is because of planning permission. Many people don't realise a lot of the United Kingdom is marshland. Building on that is very difficult, obviously. They want to simplify it so that planning system is in and of itself easier to manage and progress. The 12th one, this one might be considered controversial, is reform the Supreme Court, with them leaning in favour towards a more US-style system. This one is controversial because many regard judicial review as a critical democratic check on the abuse of government power and the way of ensuring that no one, including ministers, is above the law. The counter to that is that many believe the judges, who are unelected and unaccountable, are too involved in political decision-making and more should be known about their political views. The most well-known damning statement of that was how the Supreme Court abolished prorogation, or said it was moot because, and then insert their non-biased reason at all, when upon closer inspection you realise the majority of the Supreme Court in that room, including Lady Hale, have interests financially in continental Europe. So I guess I should move on to the Conservative one now, yeah? Well, we'll do that tomorrow. That could be fun. It's not vapid at all. Not even a little. Oh.